this tutorial is designed to introduce you to some sequencers that are within Ableton and Max for Live that you might not know existed. So these sequencers are slightly different from the arpeggiators and things that you would normally find within Ableton. And most of these are Max for Live devices. And some of these come with packs that you get along with Ableton. Now, to get everything that I'm going through here, you would need to have Ableton 10. Some of these devices are available in Ableton 9.5, as long as you have Max for Live along with that. But even if you don't, watch this tutorial. It'll probably make you go out and buy the new version of Ableton, because there's so much that you can do once you have the packs and once you have Max for Live and once you have Ableton 10. So without further ado, let's talk about sequencers. What are they? What do they do? And why do you care? Well, basically, a sequencer allows you to play back particular notes or samples in a particular way, where instead of you literally, kind of playing a load of keys or playing a load of samples in, you can trigger them in a pattern. And that pattern is the sequence. So basically what you can do is you can alter that pattern or alter that sequence in a number of different ways. You can have it play it back different speeds, different lengths. You can have multiple patterns playing back at the same speed or different speeds and different lengths. So you're getting loads of different types of alternating rhythms, also known as polyrhythms. So yeah, there's loads that you can do, and there's loads that you can add to your music by incorporating some of these things. And it can be used on all styles of music, whether it's house, techno, hip hop, anything that you can imagine, obscure electronica, shoegaze, jungle, whatever it is. This will enable you to kind of think about putting music together in a slightly different way. Now, over the last few years, I've been working a lot with modular synthesizers, and I'm fascinated as to how they work. And they kind of work in a similar way to this, at least the sequencers do. And so this is why I would use these techniques quite a lot, because I feel comfortable and I feel at home with them. And they allow you to explore sound creation in a whole new way. So let's start off, first of all, with a quick demonstration of all of the different types of sequencers that I have here. So there's 9 altogether. So the first one, if I just click in here, you can see it. It's the Max for Live Big 14 step sequencer. So basically, for you to find that, you would go to Max for Live, and we're working with Midi effects. So we're arpeggiating MIDI here at the minute, or sequencing MIDI, I should say. So if you go down here now to ML4, and then you want to go to Big 14, there it is there. So you would drag that in and start afresh, and we're going to be doing that as well. Okay, so let's hide that, get that out of the way for now. And let's basically focus on what we have here, first of all. So if I knock this off, and let's pop it on here now so we can hear a sequence. So what I have here is analog, which is one of the instruments within Ableton. I'm not going to go through what's going on here, other than to say I've got a very, very quick decay on the amp envelope and a very quick decay on the filter cutoff as well. So there's 2 different types of slopes here. One is exponential, AXP, and the other one is linear. It adds to the type of sound. And I'm looking to create a particular type of sound, and that works for me. You don't have to follow this exactly, but this will give you a nice quick hit. And that's basically what I want for this type of sequence. So if I bring in some drums. And even though this loop is only 5 steps long, it's constantly evolving and changing. I'll explain more about that as we go along. But basically, up around the top here, we have the number of steps. So we have 5 steps. It's divided up into 16ths. So that's, think of a bar as a whole number. If you half the bar, you have 2 halves. If you half that again, you have quarters, you have 4 quarters. And then if you go again, if you half it, you get 8ths. And then if you half that again, you get 16ths. So basically what we have here is we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 16ths. So if I go take this up to 16, I'm just clicking and dragging up. So there's 5 16ths out of the 16 basically, and that's what I'm using. We're looking at pitch at the minute, so you can go in here and change this. You can change pitch, velocity, duration, probability, which is like randomness, and you know, what's the probability of this thing happening basically. So yeah, you've got some other things as well that you can go through. We'll go through this in more detail. That's the first one that we're going to look at. The second one then is its bigger brother or sister. I absolutely love this one. So let's have a listen and turn on one of the sequences. Okay, so again, we can change some of the values above. You've got notes, velocity, duration, and probability, and then you can view everything together or else singular. You've got some other options over here where you can move various aspects of the sequence around. You've got random buttons here, so that'll randomize the pattern. You can also reduce the length of your sequence just by clicking this and moving this around. And that'll just completely change, which is beautiful. Now, at the minute, we only have one sequence going here. I'm going to pop on the rest. Maybe add a bit of swing. Hours of endless fun. Right, I'll move on now before I get carried away. But yeah, so you can hear how really nice that is. Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. So I'm going to knock that off for now, knock the next one on. So the next one, oh, by the way, this StepSequencer is found in that same list. You just go to S, it's all in alphabetical order, StepSequencer. These are both the same, to be honest. I must have installed it twice. There you go. So that's there. Let's move on to the next one. This is Rozzer. This is known as the advanced StepSequencer. So again, it's just a different way of working things. Let's have a listen to it. Okay, very nice. So we've got pitch, octave changes, velocity, and then these can be used for mapping anything to anything else. We'll save those for another day. But this is your control window. So at the minute, I have the notes set up in fourths, which is here, or quarters, I should say. Then octaves are set up with 5 divisions. So we can literally chop up the octave changes over whatever division that we want. Then we have velocity, which is how hard you're actually hitting a note or how loud the volume or amplitude is. And so you can basically randomize these. These are randomized buttons. For some reason, I think maybe on Ableton 10, the color coding has got lost because the whiting is right and the background is kind of white as well. So you can't see it, but that's what that does. Anyway, we'll spend more time at this in a second. Let's move on to the next one. So the next one is ARP. And that's on the same list under A, of course. So if I play a note here on the keyboard and activate it, is my keyboard actually working here at the moment? Bear with me a wee second. Let's try this. There we go. Right, okay. So I'm just holding down a note. So yeah, you can play whatever you like through your keyboard, or else you can basically put in a sequence as well if you like. So you could go in and just literally, you know, pop a note in here if you don't have a MIDI keyboard. There we go. You get that. Now, that's not really exciting, but if you press hold, that'll hold that note, and then that triggers a sequence. and I've just deleted that. So now I'm just playing the keyboard. And if I hit hold again, I can, you know, pitch up and down between different keys. So let's try that. And very nice. Okay, so you've got a few different options here. Again, very similar to the others: velocity, length, and then you've got more advanced options down here. So basically, we'll go through this in more detail as we go along, but that's just to give you an idea of what it sounds like. Let's move on. Okay, so this is beautiful. Just going to throw that out there right now. It looks complex, but it's not. Well, it's not as complex as you probably think. So there's 4 sections: section 1, 2, 3, and 4, or pulse 1, 2, 3, and 4. What this allows you to do is to create polyrhythms. If you're not sure where they are, that's fine. But basically, it's multiple sequences for playing at once. But basically, the length of the sequence differs. So if you say you've got 3 people counting, first person counts to 10, the second person counts to 9, third person counts to 6, and the other person counts to 3. Well, when I'm counting to 3, I'm going to get to the end of my cycle before the person counting to 10 gets to the end of their cycle. So what happens is you create these really complex rhythms of, instead of people counting, you're getting notes being played, and sometimes they fall in and out of different rhythms, and that's known as polyrhythms or polymeter. So that's not the best of explanations, but yeah, it's to give you an idea of what this thing does. And also, let's hear it. That'll also give you an idea. All sorts of beautiful. So we'll go through that in more detail as we go along. Next up then, we have the mono sequencer. And the mono sequencer is really interesting. So you can randomize pitch, velocity, the octave, duration, or repeats. And again, this is your sequence here. This is your 16 steps. You can reduce that or increase it, and then you can take certain things out to change the notes that are played or muted within the sequence. So if I want to change the octave range, I can hit random. This can do loads as well. I might actually change that sound, but yeah, that's fine. Let's move on to the next one. So the next one is the melodic step sequencer. So there's basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different sequences going on. The first one sequences your octave range. The next one will change your pitch. The next one will change the length of the note. The next one will be the velocity or amplitude or volume of the note, and then the next one is chance. So this is like randomization. Will this or will this not play? So that will allow you to create more variation within your sequence. You can set a scale and a root note, and that will lock the sequence to a particular scale. So for example, if your piece of music that you're making is within a particular scale, that's fine. You can use this to lock it to the scale that you need. So this sequence works within your piece of music. So let's try. This is the octave range change. There's so much you can do with this. We'll go through this in more detail as well. Okay, next up then, we have Dr. Chaos. So Dr. Chaos is great fun altogether. Again, it's a sequencer. It allows you to create loads of different sequences, and it allows you to lock a particular scale. It allows you to change the rate of your sequence and add randomization in there and chance. Again, it's very, very similar to how a modular synth works. Very, very nice. Okay, and then the next thing, I'm not going to spend too much time on the next one, but basically it's really, really nice. I have a separate tutorial for this, so if you're interested in it, let me know and I can send you that on. But basically it's a probability ARP. Let me just pop this in here and then I'll copy one of the other synth sounds and I'll drag that in there as well. So basically the probability ARP is like a really nice version of the Ableton ARP, and it allows you to do a number of things. So if I just pop the ARP on, and I have it set to chord mode at the minute, and let's see. So let's play a sequence. So it's playing a major chord, minor. Let's go for a major 11th. So then if I press hold, bring in some drums. Take out some of the sequence. Change the playback. Set some randomness. Let's go maybe the playback of the style. Some swing. So again, there's loads that you can do with this as well. As I say, I have a separate tutorial for that. Okay, so that was just a quick introduction, believe it or not. Let's dig a wee bit deeper into these things now. So with the Max for Live big 14 step sequencer, let's start off with that one. And let's kind of dig into the bare bones of it. Now, I won't go through everything in each one of these sequencers, but this will give you a good idea what these approximately do. So at the minute I have this set to 5/16. So this is the steps that you can see. You can go right up to 64 or go to 1. Now that's not the playback, that's just what you can see. So if I click this, it goes back to 16 and we're playing 5 out of the 16. But if I start moving this around, if there's any other notes here, it'll play those notes as well, or instead of where I was. I can decrease this. So you can do whatever you like to get whatever sound you want. Now this is set to pitch at the minute, so this is playing back these pitches. If I go to velocity, I can increase the velocity. But now the only thing is, you can't do it separately. This will move everything, which is slightly unfortunate, but you can do that with some of the other sequencers. So if I go back to pitch a wee second and keep it there for a wee second. So let's look now at the steps, as we said before. So we're doing 5 steps here out of the 16. We can also then go to the divisions. So these divisions are a wee bit awkward to get your head around initially. But basically the way that it works is, if you see, we're set to 16 at the minute. So we're set to 16N. If I go to 16ND, that's dotted. So it's a different type of rhythm. I'm not going to explain what dotted and triplet is, but experiment with it and see how you get on. So it's adding groove, it's adding swing. So if I go to from 16ND to 16N, we're back where we were. But now there's one more as well. Let's go to 16NT. This is triplet mode. It's too much, but let's go to 8NT. And as soon as I find it, 8ND, so we're looking for 8NT, which is here. So you're getting that kind of on-off beat type of rhythm now, which is really, really interesting. So let's keep that for a while. Let's move on now to the next section, which is direction. Which direction do you want your sequence to play? Do you want it to play backwards, forwards, forward and back, like a bouncing ball, or random? So let's try forward. Again, experiment. Forward, back, back, forward. Random. And because you're adding loads of random variations in here, even though this is only 3/16 of a sequence, it sounds like if it's constantly evolving and changing, which is always good. You always want your sounds to be evolving and changing, even if it's only minutely, that's fine. But create some type of movement within your sound. Keeps your listener a lot more interested, I guess. Okay, so this is pitch that we're looking at here at the minute. Let's go to velocity. So what is velocity? It's loudness, it's amplitude, it's a way to create more rhythm within your sound. So let's try that. Let's take the middle one down, and the first one, make it louder, and then change it from random to forwards. So it's completely changing the feel of that rhythm based on velocity or amplitude. So have a mess around with that as well. Next up we have duration. This is how long the notes will play. So you can change that. Now, because the way I have the amp and filter set up within this oscillator or within this instrument, you might not hear too well, but we'll try and open it up a wee bit so you can hear some type of difference at least anyway. So let's try and do that. Okay, I've just taken that back down again there as well. So you can hear the difference in those amplitudes, the duration. So, but that all depends on what way you have your synth set up as well. Okay, and let's move on now to probability. So this is basically options where you can change and they dictate whether or not the particular sound that's behind each one of these steps will or will not play. So for example, there's an 80% chance this note will play, or 88%. This one is 58, and this one is 95. So this is most likely to play, this is second most likely, and this is the least likely to play. So again, you can create variation within your sounds if you start messing around with that as well. So that's to give you an idea. This is so much more flexible than your normal arpeggiator. And just to finish off as well, on the right hand side here, it tells you which step you're on, which pitch you're in, the velocity, which is your loudness, duration, which works in ticks, so it's 320 ticks. So there's, it lasts for a certain period of time, and if you change that, it'll go higher or lower. Prob stands for probability or likelihood of that note being played, so it's 90%. It'll keep rotating now and evolving. Okay, so that's the first one. Now that I've explained all that, the next one should be a wee bit easier to understand. So let's move to that one. So let's have a listen again. So this is the really nice StepSequencer that I love. So now we have similar options up here. This screen is allowing us to view everything. So that's note, velocity, duration, and probability. But we might want to drill into one rather than everything. So if we want to do that, we can click here. So we can change the notes. We can change the velocity, duration, probability. So we've explained what all of these things are, so we don't need to go over that again, but it's there as an option. Now, in the last one, we couldn't change the lengths of like the note and the duration or the velocity. We couldn't change the sequence length up here separately. It changed everything. But because in this sequencer we've actually got 4 built into one, we should be able to change the length of the playback sequence. So what that allows you to do is to create more polyrhythmic rhythms, or in other words, much more interesting rhythms. So we've the first one turned on at the minute, and that's playing in 16ths, and the sequence is playing forward, and there's 16 steps. So let's take it down to 13 steps. Beautiful. And keep it playing forward. Let's now move on and add a second sequence in there. That's playing 16 steps, and it's in 16ths. Let's change that to 8s, triplets. Or 8th dotted. Oh, that's nice. Okay. Don't want to go forward, I want to go backward. Let's bring in another one. Something I want to point out here as well. These sections is where you click on to change your view on the left hand side. It's very easy not to realize that. So at the minute that's set to 13 steps within the sequence. This one is set to 16. Now it tells you over here, it says loop 13, 16. So just keep an eye on that as well, and that's how you change them. So let's bring in the third one. And let's randomize this one. And that changes this to quarter. And what do we set the other one to? Yeah, dotted. So quarter dotted. So if we look at each one now, this is 16. I'm going to take this down to 3. So that's what the bottom one sounds like. We're not getting any out of this for some reason. Let's look at that and see. So we're getting out of this one here, we're getting 3. Those 3 sequences, and it's in 8ths. And then we go to the top one, change that over. So that's it's set to 13 steps. 13 steps versus 3 steps. And then the bottom one is also 3, or no, that's 16, sorry. Let's view that. There we go. Now, you can move this around any way you want as well. It doesn't have to be right at the start. It can be here. So let's move a few around, see what happens. Okay, that's quite nice. So let's add some swing. So most of these divisions are set to 16ths or 8ths or quarters. So we can have a wee mess around with 16ths and 8ths, see which works best. I reckon 16ths, but let's try. Yeah, 16ths. This is the amount of swing that you want to add. So it depends on how funky you want it to get. So let's see what else we have. We've got, basically this is a randomize button. So if I select this, it's randomizing velocity. If I go to notes, it'll randomize that. Duration, probability, notes. Then you can move things around to the right, to the left, up or down. So that's me pitching notes up and down, or you can do the same with velocity, duration, and probability. So there's so much that you can do with that. It's just unbelievable. I get so much use out of this thing. You also have the MIDI handling section. I won't cover this in this tutorial, but just making you aware that it's there. Okay, so that is the StepSequencer, and again, that can be found within the MIDI effects of your Max for Live folder. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. What else do we have? We have the Rozzer Advanced StepSequencer. Again, it's in the same spot. It's in your Max for Live MIDI devices. So let's have a go with this one. Now, I'm going to use this in two different ways. Anyone that's into techno might enjoy the second way. Well, it doesn't have to be techno. It can be anything. But yeah, this thing's renowned for creating some nice techno sequences based on using samples. So we're going to do that shortly. But before we do, we're going to use it with Wavetable, which is equally as lovely. Okay, so let's explain what this is and what it does. I'm just going to turn these down a wee bit so you can hear me a little better. Okay, so let's look at our options. So what are we looking at here first of all? Well, if you can see 4 divisions, those 4 divisions are basically, if we go to pitch, well, we don't need to, but if we go to notes here and we see length 4, if I drag that up, you should see those notes changing, right? So at the minute we have 4 notes that we can bunch from. Then we have our octave range. So let's go to octaves. So at the minute I have 5 octave changes in there. You can have 16 if you want. You can have as many as you want. I'm just clicking and dragging up and down. If you click this triangle, that will reset it to its original default, just in case you get lost. CC1 and 2 we're not going to cover, so you don't need to worry about those. And then we have velocity. So velocity will allow you to add as much different volume changes as you want. So you can do that too. Okay, so let's have a look here first of all at, right, okay, so let's go to pitch. So I've just changed the note here. Now what you can do is you can knock off 2 of the 16ths, so you're getting a quarter note here and a quarter note here. You want to add more of these and more notes, you just drag this up. Let's go 7, that'll give us a weird rhythm. Okay. So let's move this around now. Okay, so you can move that whatever way you want. Then let's go with gates. If I increase the gates, this increases the divisions down here as well. So if I take this up to 8, that's double what we had. So I can just type in 8 there if I like. I think. No, it's back to 16. Well, keep it at 16. So all we're getting is these ones, but if I click and drag, and then I'm going to take it back to 4. So we're getting 4 different notes, but we're getting 16 steps, or gates. That's what it's known as here. So you can create some really nice complex rhythms there as well, just by basically allowing the gates and the notes to work together. Next up we have octaves. So if I take all these down, I'm just clicking and dragging across. And then take one up, you'll hear pitching up. And I have that set to 6. So you're getting like an off and on beat type of rhythm with the octaves. Have a mess around with that and explore it. Odd numbers are good. Or if it goes from an odd to an even number, it's quite nice as well. So like if I pick 3, so this is like odd to even. Let's go down to 3. It doesn't even. 4 is the maximum. So let's go 6 again then. That's probably why I had it at 6 before. And then you have velocity changes. Now, these buttons here, as I said before, are randomizers. So let's try and randomize some of the velocities. You can get some really nice sounds that way too. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just delete this wavetable, and I'm going to go and bring in a different type of instrument, and this is the sampler. So as I mentioned before, you can use this for a number of different things. So this is basically on the left hand side. This Rozzer sequencer is literally sending loads of MIDI information out to whatever's to the right hand side of it. So to the right hand side up until this point was the wavetable synth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in a sampler like so, and then I'm going to go to some samples that I have. Let's go for it can be anything at all. Let's go for analog sequencers. That's fine. Pop it in. Okay. So what I can do now is I can get this to play this back again. There's a few ways I can do this. So let's go to let's reset this a second. Turn all these on. And I'm going to pitch this up a bit. It's too low. So if I go into the controls, I'm going to pitch. And then basically the amp envelope. There we go. Nice. Just like that. I'm going to turn on warp. And then I'm going to change the playback mode to the top one, which will play the sound back and then stop. And I'm going to decrease the percentage of that playback from 100 to something shorter. So now it's only playing back 47% of that sound between, for this transient. Now I'm going to zoom in here and I'm going to move this sound a wee bit, or the starting point of the sound. Take up the volume. Too much. Very nice. Add some filtering. That's one way of doing it. Let's go for slice mode and take this back. So now it's playing lots of different slices from that sample, and you can start it wherever you want. And you can randomize the way that this is playing back, so you can take out some of the sequences. Very nice. So again, just a different way of using it. I could sit and mess around with that all day long, to be honest. Yeah, so there you go. And there's more that you can do, but if you know how to use the sampler, you'll probably know most of that anyway. So I won't go through it. So there you go. That is the Rozzer sequencer and a sample being cut up and rearranged in Simpler. So let's move on to the next one. The next one is ARP, and again, it's in the MIDI effects list. So if I turn this on, and I'm going to press a key on the keyboard and press hold. So how does this work? Very simple. You've got the divisions up here, so it's set to 16ths. Again, as I mentioned earlier on, you have a whole number, you half it, you get 2 halves. Half it again, you get 4 quarters. You half it again, and you get 8ths. And half it again, you get 16ths. So it's how quick the divisions are and how quick the sequence is during playback. So it's set to 16ths at the minute. So I'm going to press hold again and a key. I'll change that. That's half the speed. So that's 8ths, quarters. So that's beats, quarter notes. Now sometimes it's missing a beat or a rhythm, and that's because of the way that this is set up, but that's fine. Let's take it back up to 16ths. Then we go to triplet mode. That's too fast. Let's take it to 8ths so, and you get this nice groove. Okay, and then we can go from that to dotted. So that's your kind of on-off beat type of sound. Let's take it to 16ths. Now, if we knock these off and go to 16ths, there's another thing you can do as well. You can add swing here. So it really depends on what you're after. What does your piece of music need? And that will dictate which one of these that you use. You also have here, you can also, let's just play a note here. So, hold. So then you have your sync mode. You can come out of sync mode and you can change the BPM. So this BPM of this sequence is free from your global BPM. The BPMs are every other sequence that we've used has not been. It's been synced to the BPM. That's how it works. That's how things stay in time. But you can knock this one off if you like. I'm going to keep it synced. But that's just to make you aware of it. This is going over 3 octaves. So if I press a key again, 3 octaves, staying at the 1. Even that's nice as well. It really just depends on what you want to do. You could actually, map that as well and use this as a live MIDI changer. So basically, if you have the octave range mapped to a knob within your MIDI controller and you're playing live, you can bunch up and down between your octaves. That's something that you could experiment with. If we go over around the top, this is the note playback. So I'm going to pop in an F. Nope. Hold the key. Change the playback. So this is as played. Play the note up. So it's sequencing up constantly, or it can sequence down. Forward mode. Random, and then follow. So that's your different modes. It's not actually making any difference to the playback at the minute, just to make you aware of that. So we've got velocity changes here. We've got length, and then we have different map and advanced options. So let's go to velocity first of all. If I want to randomize a velocity, I can do that. I can set values here. So say I want you to randomize a velocity, but I wanted it to be between here and here. So if I randomize that, all those values are now between here and here. So let's try that. So if I change that, you'll hear it getting louder or lower. So again, you can tune that whichever way you like. You can have your sequences on or off here. So it depends what you want to do. So this allows you to create gates. Well, that's quite nice. Change the length. You're at 16ths at the minute. Now we're at 11ths. Very nice. So then we have length. This is the length of the note. Again, you might need to open up your amp envelope for this to work properly, but we'll have a mess around anyway. There you go. Okay, and then we've got a mapping section. I'm not going to spend too much time at this. I'm going to go on to the advanced settings. At the minute, it's allowing us to dictate. Once we add octaves, it allows us to basically dictate how much of a change each octave there will be. So for example, when I'm going from octave 1 to octave 2, there will be a 2 semitone change, and then there'll be so I'm going up in thirds and fifths and down in thirds and fifths and octaves, basically, so to create a nice harmonic relationship between all of the different octave changes. And if you know a wee bit about music theory, you should hopefully understand what I'm talking about there. If you don't worry, experiment. But what I would say is the magic numbers are 5, 7, 12, either way, plus or minus. So you can have a mess around with those to start off. See how you get on. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. I think we've, oh, here, retrigger. That should be something that we should go through as well. So let's give you a demonstration of that. Actually, you know what I'll do? I'll actually show you that in one of the other synths, but just keep in mind that retrigger is quite handy at certain times as well. Okay, so let's turn that off. Go on to the next one. So this is the longest tutorial ever, but hopefully it's worth it. So the next one is the Max PolyBeat. And basically what this is allowing you to do is to create polyrhythms. So as I said before, you have 4 different sections or 4 different pulses. So let's turn them all off a wee second. And I'm just going to turn this off for a wee second as well. I'll turn on one. So what this is doing now, like every other sequencer, is it's looking up here at the tempo and saying, right, it's 120 BPM. I'm going to play at quarter notes. So that would be where your beat would be if I turn on the metronome. It's right on the metronome. Yeah. So if I wanted that to go twice as fast, I would go from 4 to 8. So now you're getting 2 notes per quarter beat. But it does change. There's a bit of variation in there as well. Okay, so I'm gonna just take that back to quarter notes again. And you can offset that as well, so this adds a bit of swing if you want. That's bang on now. Add a bit of reverb in here. Okay, just turn off the metronome. So we're getting 2 notes here, by the way. We're getting C and G. You can change that. Let's go A. Back to G. So that they're both the same. They get the C again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change, let's see, take that in a second. The cycle allows you to create different cycles within your sequence as well. I'll go through that in more detail as we go along. So the velocity is loudness, randomness. We'll add a wee bit of randomness into your sequence as well. Okay, so I'm going to add, let's say, 16ths here. Or maybe 8 triplets. Add a bit of randomness in. Change the rate a wee bit maybe. Add a second one. Quarter notes. Add a third one. So we're getting chords here as well based on the keys that I've selected. And you can see there's different cycles here as well. So it'll cycle through 4 times, 4 times, and 3 times. So this one will, the cycle will finish earlier than the others. So then you're going to get constant evolvement of the sequences. We add a bit of delay into this. And again, you're probably listening to that all day long. So experiment with that, see how you get on. I've covered the majority of it. There's a few things that I've basically bypassed, but you'll get the idea of the basics of that, and that's all I want to cover with the PolyBeat and this one. Okay, so next up then, we have a mono sequencer. So let me just get rid of that sound, and I'm going to just borrow this one. I'm going to drag this over. Okay, so mono sequencer, again, found in the same place as everything else. So let's try that. Oh, wrong one. Even that's nice. And that's just starting. You have different patterns that you can select. There are different patterns that you can bounce between, basically. So you can have 12 different patterns. So if you start in pattern 1, I think pattern 1 is the only one that has a pattern in there. So say if I go to pattern 3, for example, and I go to octave changes, I can add an octave change there if I want. Or I can reset it over here. So what I can do is I can randomize it if I like, and then change the step length, move it around. These are the gates again as well. These are the different playback functions. I'm not going to cover these in this one, but you have them all down there as well. So you up, down, drunk, random. You do whichever one you like. Okay, so let's randomize that a wee bit more. So say I like that sound. I'm going to go then for velocity. I'm going to randomize that. whichever one you want here. So that'll give you a different type of sound as well. Gyration. You might not hear much again based on the envelopes that I have set up within the synth. Okay, so let's move on. Repeats. You can randomize those. The amount down a little. Repeats can be fun, but they're awkward to get right. And I think they can kind of take too much of your attention as well within the sequence. But so that'll give you an idea how that works. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. You know how to randomize it. You can move your notes around, up and down, left and right, etc. as well. We're set to 16 steps. We're set to 16ths. You can change all that as well, like the other. And you can transpose and do lots of other wee bits and pieces as well. You have different. You can actually use MIDI to transpose stuff up and down as well. I'm not going to go into that section. This is just to give you a brief idea how it works. Let's move on now to the next one. So the next one is the Melodic StepSequencer. Now this is quite easy to understand, in my opinion. So you set a scale. So whichever scale you want, C major, just for handiness. And I'm gonna take the drums off for a wee second. So the numbers here represent the length of the sequences. So we've octaves, so the octaves go over 3/16ths, and then the transpose goes over 5/16ths, the length 8, and so on. So say if I wanted to increase that, that's simple enough. Increase this. That gives you more variations on your octaves. Say you want less, you take it down. Then you have your transpose, so if you want to pitch up or down. I have it set to a low amount at the minute. I'm gonna. This is like throwing a dice, and you get high numbers with this one or low numbers with this one. Then you have your length. You can randomize that. Velocities. I'm gonna randomize that a wee bit, and then the chance. If I bring all of the chances up. Oh, sorry, wrong one. So that's every note's gonna play now. Over here on the right hand side, you can speed up the playback as well if you like. So you can multiply it by 2 or divide it by 2, whatever one. Divide it by 2, multiply it by 2. And then you can resync. You can add swing. Don't think swing adds much to it. I think it actually takes a bit away. You can go to Triplet Mode. Get some nice rhythms with that. Very nice. Okay, so that's to give you an idea of how that works. Hopefully it makes more sense now that you've looked at the others. So let's move on now to Dr. Chaos. So Dr. Chaos is part of the probability pack, and this is where we're going to end. We're going to end with this Dr. Chaos, and then the one that we looked at earlier on, which was the probability ARP. So these come in the same pack. And the Dr. Chaos allows you to create rhythms, kind of like how certain sequencers with modular synthesizers work. Now, I'm not going to go into everything regarding this. I'm going to have a play around with it and see if we can get something nice from it. So this is your network of patterns. You can literally move patterns around whichever way you like, and that will basically change the patterns that are being played. So you've got a random button here. You can add or subtract chaos. So let's have a mess. And let's randomize it. So what this is doing every time you randomize this is it changes which note follows the previous note, and you'll see this being rewired. So this is set to, let's change it to a C major scale just for now. And then, so that gives us all the notes within the C major scale. And then depending on which way you want the notes to play back will dictate which way you have this set up. So if I mess around with the chaos, it just basically rewires this for you. So if we take all of these down, it just plays C. Now C and E. Now we're getting a few of the different notes coming in. Now, what else can you do? You can save loads of patterns in here. So if you create a nice pattern, you can save it. I'm not going to cover that in this tutorial. Okay, so you have different control surfaces that you could use to mess around with this. You can use push and some others. But yeah, the template that I have here is for push. Now, what you can do as well is you can add randomness, even more randomness than what there already is, by increasing the chaos. And also going over to this section, so that's set to C at the minute. If I start increasing this, it changes the note. It's set to A, it's now set to C. If I change the octave ranges, it will change the octaves, velocity and length. You can randomize this as well. The rate is over here, and then you've got swing. Swing works quite well on this. So again, it depends on the sound you're after. So that is a brief introduction to Dr. Chaos. There's loads more that this can do, so be sure to dig into it a wee bit more. Next up then, we have the probability ARP. I absolutely love this, to be honest with you. I love it for a number of reasons. I'm going to just delete this wavetable a wee second, and I'm going to pop in an instrument called Electric, and I'm going to put in some nice reverb after this as well. And this is what we're going to finish up on. So this is great for a number of different things. And let's go to audio effects. Why am I lost? Let's go to reverb. Okay, so pop that on at the end, and I'm going to set a nice pre-delay and a nice decay time, and everything else should be okay. Maybe just add a wee cut here. Okay, so let's activate this. Oh, sorry, it's here. On. Beautiful. So you have a number of different sections. As I said before, I've got a separate tutorial on this, so I'm not going to spend a massive amount of time on it. But basically, yeah, you've got your ARP. So I'm just holding down one note at the minute. If I turn on the ARP, that's now basically playing C, back and forth, based on the rate and the style that we have here. Let's just turn all these off a second, and this on. So that's all it's doing. If I turn on chord, it's now playing C minor 11th. We can change the type of chord. That's a C major 11th, minor 9th, major 9th, etc. We can change this around. We can invert some of the notes here. Now, I'm not going to explain what inversions are if you're not sure, but again, have a mess with them and listen to the sound. If you like it, use it. If you don't, try something else. Now, another thing that you could do is let's turn ARP off for a wee second. I'm going to turn chord on. I'm going to go to minor 11th. This strum function is absolutely beautiful. So what it allows you to do is if I press F, that gives me F minor 11th. Even if you don't know what that is, that's fine, but that's the note that is playing at the minute. So you can see the notes that make up that chord. What if I want to play them at different times? Well, that's where strum comes in. So let me just pop strum up a little. So it breaks the playback of the notes up a little. So that then you get the idea. So this isn't a sequence, I guess. So I'm kind of breaking the rules here a little bit. But basically strum won't work if you have the arpeggiator sequence on. Just making you aware of that. So if you stick on the ARP now and you stick on hold and I'll press the same note. So this is the way it strums, essentially. So if I add a sequence in here now, or add gates in here, turn off retrigger. And then basically the rate is up here. I'm happy with 16ths. We can do it over a couple of octaves. If we want, we can set that here. Got our swing here. I'm going to turn that off a wee second. So yeah, the retrigger setup itself will actually allow you to have the sequence playing back in one way or another. So when retrigger is on, it continues playing based on Ableton's transport. If you have it off, it doesn't. So if you want it to be a little smoother, I would turn off retrigger. Now let's look at the probability section. So this is the rate of playback. I don't want to mess with that. I want it to stay in at 16ths. But the style, I want these styles to change. At the minute it's going down and up, or up and down, or converge, diverge, conodiverge. You've loads of different versions here. And you also have chord, which is quite loud. Okay, so what I want to do is I want it to play the first couple. So if I drag this up and then add some randomness, you'll see this now changing through some of the playback styles. Very nice. Then you've got length. You can change the length or add variation to the length and the octaves as well. So already we're starting to get some really interesting sounds. So there you have it. There is 9 sequencers within Ableton that all deserve their own tutorial, and I probably should have done a separate one for each one, but here we are, and hopefully we're all still here. So yeah, thankfully that's the end. I'm away to get fed. Hopefully you enjoyed the tutorial and you get a lot from it. And let me know how you get on, and I'm looking forward to hearing your sounds.